All right, Madam Chair, we are live and ready.
Thank you. I'd like to go ahead and call the joint work session between the City Council and the Planning Commission to order at 6:04 p.m. And this is a work session, so we won't be as formal as Robert's Rules of Order, but our plan would be to have Heidi go through the document, and if along the way, if you have a question, you can go ahead and ask. But at the end of each section, we'll have a time for discussion by the public officials. And then if there are any members of the public that want to weigh in at that, they can do so at the end of that section. So that way it'll hopefully be timely discussion, and then we'll move on to the next section. Does anybody have any questions or any advice to offer in terms of how we go forward? Okay, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to Heidi to walk us through.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hopefully everybody has a copy of this draft comprehensive plan in front of them. This is the sixth version. I've reviewed them very thoroughly each time, and this time I'll say that I didn't catch anything untoward. It seemed like they did capture what the council and the planning commission have had to say so far, and the public. Definitely some typos and some formatting, and so I did send off an email with some of those things. But if you see anything like that or anything at all, just speak out and we'll make sure we get it back to AML, as they're not able to be here tonight, and they're the ones that are helping us write the plan. They do plan on being here at the first week of December for a public forum about the plan. So it's been through several versions of public input and city official input. First with a survey, and then a town hall, and then with the planning commission, the city council. The hope is that after tonight, we can gather everybody's comments and feedback, give that to AML. They can finish and do a final draft. And then that will go out in a week and a half to the public for a 30-day public comment period, making sure that everybody is as aware as possible, and that they have access to it on the website. And we'll have some copies at the city office, and make sure it's on Facebook and at the post office, and just so that people have that chance to see it and comment within that 30 days, as well as to hopefully attend that public forum about the topic at the beginning of December. So there will be more time to discuss this plan, but hoping that we really get your guys' feedback this evening in order to make it to that final draft form. With that in mind, I will jump in. There will be an additional page at the beginning with the final plan that will include who worked on it. So all of you will be listed as part of the informed group that helped produce this plan, which is great and pertinent. I think it's been really helpful to see that in the 2014 plan, to know who was involved, and so carrying that through. And then moving into introduction, just a simplified introduction of this new plan. It does take a lot of the pieces from the 2014 plan and moves them forward, which was the goal of the council when we started this process. There's some small changes, there's some bigger changes and some smaller changes, but it's fairly consistent, and most of those visions and goals and focus areas move forward into the plan. They're just reformatted. For instance, the 2014 plan here that I have here had elements as the headers. Now we have pillars. and then it had goals, focus areas, and then recommendations. So it was a lot, and it was a lot of flipping back and forth. This plan goes to hopefully a little bit more simplified format, where it has the pillars, goals, and then instead of focus areas and recommendations, they're just actions. And it brought in both those focus areas and the recommendations into those actions for those goals. So introduction, you'll see here, we still have economy, land use, transportation, and before we had, sorry, let me pull it up real quick. Community and human resources. So that is now community and social resources. And then we had a section on environment, and that is now resilience. So a few changes. And then there was a recommendation at the state level to include housing, because that's a big discussion across the entire state and nation, is housing in our communities. So there's a new pillar, and that is related to housing. As it cites in the plan, I'm on page 2. Each pillar is informed by community voices, the lived experiences, priorities, and aspirations of Seldovia's residents. Together, these elements form a cohesive strategy that balances economic opportunity, environmental stewardship, and quality of life. Does anybody have any questions on the introduction? Okay, then I'll keep moving through. You'll see a comprehensive plan overview, just provides some information about the importance of a comprehensive plan, what it's intended for as a framework to guide development and strategic community investment over the next 10, 20 years, the planning process that we've gone through so far, and then there's a plan updated timeline below that shows the steps we've been through today and we'll continue to move through. And moving on to implementation framework, which is new in this plan. It has a vision, the pillars, it provides that strategic direction, and the newest pieces are the implementation principles, which shows that pace with capacity, build on momentum, partnership first, transparent and adaptive, and incremental wins. So just talking about how we start moving through this plan. That's been really a very poignant point in this discussion, is that it's great to have a plan, but if it's sitting on the shelf, it's not helping anybody. So trying to make sure that this is a plan that's useful and that can be moved through in a timely manner with the community. And then there it shows that implementation timeline with the short-term, mid-term, and long-term projects. And that's new as well. And I'm just going to keep going unless you guys have questions. We move next to the community context. This was in the previous plan, but it is updated with some newer figures and stats. Please jump in any time. I'm just going to highlight a few things as we go through. It continues to talk about the population change in Seldovia being highly seasonal. We've seen that in the last plan, and it's a ongoing trend in the community. On page 5, on the second column, you will see some statistics about that school-aged youth have diminished and are about 15% of the area's residents are younger than 18 years of age. And then Seldovia has a notably higher proportion of seniors aged 64 and older. That's 28%, which is more than the Alaska average of 16%. We talk about the population being relatively homogeneous with a close-knit character shaped by both its Alaska Native roots and settler history. And then again, reiterating that the community has a lower proportion of children and young adults compared to larger cities, which is common in remote towns with limited employment opportunities. While we have no road connections and travel here by plane or boat, it does reinforce slow population growth and the seasonal rhythm of the community. So there's good and there's bad in it. On to the next page under economy, it's just going to take us through some of these pillars, some of the highlights of them. There was discussion at the last council work session after the plan about the figures that were provided regarding jobs in the community. And the census data indicated that Seldovia had about 78 employed residents in 2023. That wasn't a figure that was well supported. So I went through individually and using our business license data, our business license records, was able to provide an estimate of what those jobs look like more in the community. And there's about 218 positions in Seldovia, including part-time and seasonal work. So that'd be like at the heart of the summer, the heat of the summer. And based on those estimates, the largest employment sectors, including part-time and seasonal roles, are rental businesses, which is about 46 jobs. You can call them jobs. I mean, they're people with rentals. Public administration is a big one. That's Seldovia Village Tribe. They're our biggest employer. City of Seldovia and the school. So those are the public sector there, and they provide a large portion of the jobs in the community. And then fishing and transportation related jobs. So ferry, air taxi, freight. And then there's a bunch of more micro niche businesses that it'll talk about here in a little bit. So calling out again, commercial fishing and tourism remaining pillars of the local economy. And that on the second page or second column, and it calls out the unemployment rate being low for the Kenai Peninsula. In fact, the lowest unemployment rate in the Kenai Peninsula. Talking about our average annual earned income and a reflection of the dependence on summer employment and subsistence activities is called out again. I like this last paragraph. Seldovia's economy is small, seasonal, and diversified across many small-scale activities. Key economic drivers include commercial fishing, tourism, hospitality, transportation services, local government and education and construction projects. There's a high rate of self-employment and micro-enterprise. And then carrying on about what those are and what they look like, as well as commenting that Homer is a regional hub for many goods and services. So it kind of summarizes economy. Any questions so far? If I'm going too slow, I can speed up too, but I'm just trying to give a in-depth overview. Thank you. Community services is next, and just more of a focus on the services that the city provides at the beginning. So, our water, our sewer, transportation and connectivity. We take care of the roads. We have a harbor. Jack Loft is part of the city's services. Boat haul out, boat ramp. And then you'll see on the next page, we talk about some of our really key partners, Alaska Marine Highway, the airport, talk about medevacs. This maintains the roads, and we are going to update that to make sure it's clear within city limits. Does mention the ballot measure in 2022 that raised local sales tax in the summer months to purchase a new road grader, demonstrating the community support for improved road maintenance. Public safety and emergency services, and how the city supports them with the equipment and a small fire hall. Law enforcement is now a partnership with the Aleutian Probeloff Islands Association for two village public safety officers. And that we have an SOS that we help support at the bottom of that paragraph there. And then talks about our school. And if you see on the next page, it calls out that as a result, SPE's resources are closely tied to maintaining adequate enrollment in the school. So if student numbers drop significantly, the district may respond by reducing staff positions, further combining grade levels into multi-age classrooms, or in extreme cases, reviewing school viability in accordance with state minimum enrollment threshold. So we continue to hear that in the community, you know, that's always a fear. And then more about our partners with Seldovia Village Tribe, the Sea Otter Community Center, summarizing that the city of Seldovia manages its services with a lean staff and what that looks like, as well as that we engage with civic organizations like the Seldovia Chamber, work closely with Seldovia Chamber of Commerce, again, Seldovia Village Tribe, KPED, which is the Kenai Peninsula Economic Development District. So really just data to support the rest of this plan, and followed by housing, which was another one that housing said was, I think the statistic in the last one was like 50% occupancy rates. And there was some comments about maybe not having enough housing. And there was some back and forth between different members of each group. So that one, Liz and I actually did a nice little fun exercise with a big map and sticky notes to count how many residential units, and that includes like the 18 units at Cook Inlet Housing, duplexes, you know, anywhere that has a kitchen, living room, bedroom, like a unit, a dwelling unit, as we would call it. And with that, we came up with 213 housing units in total. Approximately 87 of those, which is about 40% of the population, are occupied year round, and 28 of those are rentals. And the rest remain vacant for large chunks of the year. So about 40% is occupied year round.
Are those homes rental homes, or people just coming for the summer and leaving them for the winter?
The vacant ones.
Mhm.
So they could be rentals, but they're not year-round rentals.
Seems like a high number for unoccupied.
Mhm. Unoccupied year-round.
Yeah,
They do have some.
It is a high number. Like
It is a high
it's
number.
a high number.
and because it seems, well, we'll get into it after you're done. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Please.
I just think that one of the second largest problems is the affordability.
Mhm.
People cannot afford a one person. I'm gonna use my daughter as an example. She worked here, lived here for 5 years. She had 5 jobs
Mhm.
to just afford to rent from Jeremiah and Angela. That's crazy. There has to be somebody that can build an apartment building, whether it's the city or somebody other than Seldovia House, which is compensated by the federal government, something that people can afford to live in, a single person. There are a lot of single people here that work here, but none of them have, look at her. None of them have one job except her. And her job is like a million things. But I'm saying people can't afford young people. We're losing all our young people because first, there's no jobs here. Second, there's no housing here that they can afford. There has to be some answer, and that number of unoccupied homes and dwellings here is ridiculous. So. Sorry, go ahead.
I'd like to second that because that's literally me working 5 jobs. I have worked 5 jobs before to try and afford to pay my rent. And, as a single mom, I had to live in dry cabins, it's just not good conditions,
Yeah.
just trying to, keep a dry, house over my family. So yeah, it's a definite need, and that's why people don't stay. I grew up in that sort of situation, so I was unique that way to be able to handle it, but most people shouldn't have to and can't. And so we're not gonna be able to keep families, kids in that school, if we can't have affordable housing. It just isn't gonna work. I mean, it's just my opinion, but trying to hold on to some tourist dollars,
to make it through the winter.
keep those people that have 40% of the housing, happy to come here and visit every once in a while. It's not sustainable.
How
So
many of these
I-
homes are in town?
All of them.
She,
This is all within
Crazy.
city limits. Harmony, did you have something?
No, I was just, like, those are all things that I've been saying the whole time, that I've been on council myself. Because it's a truth. It's a universal truth that it's hard and it's expensive to live here. I've sacrificed a lot of hours in many days for many years to afford to live here, as a young person. But the question is, what new council members, welcome to the conversation in this capacity. We're happy to have you. What is the solution to the economic issue of, of affordability versus seasonal availability? Like that's a huge question to consider. And, as we look at the numbers in our school, to refer back to, young families and numbers in that building, we have 35 students. That puts us exactly 5 enrolled students away for being able to qualify for a third teacher, which the borough is, you know, um, prepared to give us if we get those 5 more children, and maybe have a separate middle school classroom like we need. But who are those kids? Where are they coming from? And what are their parents doing once they get here? That's the ongoing question. And that's what those of us who are moms and parents and young people do every day. That's why we work 18 hours a day, why we volunteer 30, 40 hours a week, why we strive to just hang on to what has been taken for granted for so long by so many, in the hope that at some point we're going to turn a corner and people are going to come back home, come back to our community, and put more of their lifeblood into this community. What is the economic future of this community? You can't have affordable housing or people building apartment structures without that component. So what does that look like, and how can we as a council support that investment? That's the cornerstone of this entire conversation.
maybe the city needs to become landlords. I mean, we have property, the city has property. Building a apartment building and renting it, you're making an investment, but you're also making a return and not gouging the renter in rent. I think maybe some of the properties that Seldovia holds, city of Seldovia, would be a good idea. A lot of cities have buildings and warehouses, and what's the difference if it's an apartment building? I mean, bring more living space to Seldovia. And I would, I mean, short of going to every person in this percentage that has a home that they're not utilizing, whether for half a year or at all, they're just basically paying the property tax on them. Maybe hit up some of these people and see what they want to do with it. If they want to work with the city in renting the spaces. The problem is most of these people want to come here for the summer, so people are displaced after the winter's over. And that becomes tough because this community gets overrun with people in the summertime. So you'd run into that problem. I don't think it'd be a bad idea for the city to create home space for people that move here, affordable.
I agree with Jackie. But I don't believe that most of those people that come here in the summer and have those homes that are not being utilized or would be comfortable and making them into renters. They've spent an enormous amount of money. And they don't want to worry about it not looking perfect when they come with their guests in the summer. It's the reality. You know, I think that if the city could build something that makes more sense, I'd like to see housing built. And I'd also like to see heated warehouse space so that could possibly get some of, you know, Homer has an enormous amount of, you know, fishing boats going in there, you know, people using the marina. There's no space over there. There's so many mechanics and welders and fabricators. You know, what if we had a warehouse space that they could rent that was heated, that might bring some of those jobs over here? Because housing is one thing, affordable housing, but what the heck are they gonna do? You know, I mean, we need jobs over here. And that's the area I see the growth going, is through our marina, is through our having a boat yard, bringing some industry here, you know, bringing the boats back over here.
Thank you, guys. If you turn to page 10, it does talk about some of the things you're talking about. Not jobs yet, but where that will come. But it does talk about, for instance, in that first paragraph, that the housing tenure is skewed towards owner occupancy. About 80% of occupied homes are owner occupied. This home ownership rate is well above national averages and indicates limited availability of rental housing. A little bit further in that paragraph, the tight rental market and prevalence of seasonal use mean that year-round renters, including teachers, service workers, etc., may face challenges finding affordable quality housing in Seldovia. Next paragraph, housing costs in Seldovia are relatively low by Alaska standards. But that said, as the small inventory of houses means market dynamics can be variable. A few high-end waterfront homes or newly built houses can raise the median in some years. And then in the next paragraph, again, housing quality ranges from well-maintained homes to some units in disrepair, talking about the types of houses and common issues of weathering of wood siding, shifting foundations, need for energy efficiency. Goes then into talking about the low quantity but relatively low cost, with a stark seasonal utilization pattern, and about half of the houses sit empty in the winter, yet there can be shortages of available homes for new residents or workers. Housing affordability is better in many parts of Alaska. And then additionally, energy costs for homes or for home heating are high. Fuel, utility, or electricity for heat can be expensive in Seldovia, which effectively makes housing less affordable despite cheaper purchase costs. And summarizing that, with any significant future growth in Seldovia may require development of new housing units, whether through infill in city limits or subdivision of land in the surrounding area. The city and tribe have expressed interest in collaborative solutions to improve housing, such as constructing a small housing subdivision or multi-family units if funding can be secured. For now, the housing stock meets the needs of the current population, but it will require continued investment in maintenance and selective new construction to support Seldovia's community vitality going forward. So hopefully that kind of sums up what
It
we're
does, and it
saying.
kind of talked about the lack of jobs here.
Mhm.
You know, or you have to have 5 just to support yourself. You know, I don't know what the answer is with the job problem here.
Their proximity of one another. How much a month are you paying for taxes? I know what I pay,
I know what I pay. It's crazy.
$300-400 a month.
Property taxes.
Mhm.
I'm thinking a year.
I can tell you.
Over
I pay
three.
$400 a month, so when you add the utility cost of high fuel rates your
Mhm.
taxes, and now you try to take the employment that's available here for the average person is barely above minimum wage, and so the ratios don't fit. That's the problem. And yeah, you can bring compost back into here, but until you get the Kenai Borough to start adjusting the rate, because any of this, like,
No.
by the time she pays her taxes, they don't look at it, but the monthly, and now you put the utilities on top, pretty soon you got $700-800 a month going out
Yeah.
just to keep the
Yeah, I
lights
was gonna
on.
say, they're saying that the rental cost here is low on the average. But they're not figuring in your fuel, your electric, you know. It,
Grocery.
yeah, groceries, gas for your vehicle. And then the fact that you have to go to the doctor, you have to travel, and that's $200 round trip for two people on Mako.
And that's just, yeah.
Yeah, and so
No,
they say, I don't believe the number because we're not on a roadway. And that's the difference right there. We're paying higher costs in oil for heating fuel. We're paying higher costs in gasoline. We're paying higher electric in so at certain months of the year. And so I don't believe that that percentage of the cost in housing is low. I believe it's higher because you have to factor in those key factors and the fact that we have to pay a lot of money just to get on the roadway. So,
My gripe is with the Kenai Borough. If you look at the east side of Kachemak Bay, the amount of taxes that people pay for what they get in return for services. And that is hard, if the rental house, would I rented, just let her pay the utilities on it was a challenge for
Yeah.
the lights and the fuel, and yet won't try to give me anything. And so those things all add up,
They
and,
do.
and the average person that's trying to work here, whatever it is, they're not. You know, it's not like a welder on the North Slope is getting $75 an hour for working. You know, these people are working for 15, 20 bucks an hour. And it just doesn't.
and that's on a monthly basis.
fit.
I pay $650 a month just for heating fuel.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the taxes, like I said, my
The tax-
is paying just.
the property taxes are-
$400 a month in taxes.
So,
What's your taxes, Frank?
I get a senior discount on my taxes, so my taxes, I do get relief for that. So I'm in a, that's
I do too, but
definitely
the
help.
property taxes keep going up. So now I pay the overage and I'm up over $1,000 just in 2 lots as an overage on the tax exempt. I mean, they just keep raising it here. We haven't done anything
No.
to my property. Yeah, it's.
Yes, my property taxes are increased
Yeah.
every year. You know, I'm sorry.
So that's why people, when they're gonna rent something, have an outrageous price. $2,000 a month is a lot of money to ask somebody, plus your utilities. That's a lot of money.
So I wanted to just put in a couple of things on the positive side of possible things that might help our community. And we've had some preliminary conversations with Rural Cap, and they have it's a kind of housing development project that is similar to Habitat for Humanity, where people who are, if you're trying to get younger people or other people, I mean, it doesn't have to be a particular age, but if people are wanting to help build their houses, and, you know, people can volunteer to help with that, but sometimes cities or other entities will donate the land, and then for example, Rural Cap would have a project manager get the building materials. I'm assuming that if you're doing a larger, even if you're doing 6 houses or whatever their minimum is, they have some level of economic power to buy materials and get those costs down. So that is a possibility. I mean, right now there's a lot of ups and downs in what's available grant wise and otherwise. So those things may be affected, but that is a possibility to have a collaborative approach to housing so that then the people can buy it at an affordable amount of money because they put their sweat equity into it. The other thing that's available, and this is through the Alaska Housing Finance Corporation, is that they have some grants for rural professional housing. So for people who are like public safety people and teachers, there are possible grants. It takes effort. All of this takes time, and it takes commitment of communities and people. But so there are things that might be helpful that we could do in the future. So it just kind of depends on how do we figure it out? Because I think the other part of your conversation is the economic part is like, if you build houses and then people can't get jobs, then that's the challenge. So how do you do that? But if you don't have the housing,
Right.
then people
How
can't.
can you-
So you're having the chicken and egg. So I think just understanding how that could come together, and we'll have opportunities to talk about this in the future, but just letting you know that there are some things that could be helpful to our community, and we could figure out how could we do this? How could we make it work so it's affordable? So housing is attainable for people who want to live and work here and bring their families here
Yeah, because.
or keep their families here,
I have seen one of those housing developments, and it is amazing, the transformation. It was in Muldoon. It was from right down from Jacob's father's house, but they took this section, they cleared it, and they built these small little single family homes. They're beautiful, colorful, and the families moved in, and more kids were at the park, and they were riding their bikes, and it completely revitalized that whole area. And then if we could have housing for, teachers, maybe it would be a lot easier to get a teacher here that stayed and invested in, the classroom and those kids, and they got to have that same teacher year after year. That'd be great. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. And then Harmony, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just was curious if we had some data or like some actual factual information on the increasing rates of property tax within our community. I understand that there is a lot of borough-wide increases occurring for various reasons. I'm just wondering if there's anything specific to our community that is helping drive that increase over the last couple of years. Do we have any information on that?
Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I can take that one. So they did, or were in the process of reevaluating how they assess, and it started more in the interior Kenai Peninsula Borough and then spread out and down. So that Homer was hit pretty hard a couple of years back. I believe we've made it through in the cycle for Seldovia. The increase included views and some of the different property aspects that they're looking at that they haven't looked at before. So they definitely did a reassessment, and a reformation of how they tax those properties. You'd have to probably have a conversation with the borough to understand it a little better. It's been a long time since I've had that conversation, so I don't remember all the details. I apologize. But I do know over the last several years, they were in a process of updating how they assess properties throughout the entire Kenai Peninsula Borough. And it's definitely caused some waves throughout the borough, and Homer especially definitely had some had some voices with concerns. So if you have an issue with your property and how it's assessed, they do recommend that you let them know and they can reevaluate and work with you on it. But they are changing how they do things.
Okay, I have one follow-up to that. I was curious about how new construction or newer construction is affecting like some of the buildings that have gone up in the last 5 to 8 years, how that is affecting the overall property values of the community. I mean, how many buildings within this city don't pass like normal loan inspection because of the ad hoc way they're put together because of where we live, and yet we have like two or three, I think, like we have a couple of new mansions that
Mhm.
make like falsely inflate the value of properties within the community.
Through the chair, that's something we could look into. That is. And on that note,
I do have one comment. I did this comment earlier review. The last paragraph says, for now, the housing stock meets the needs of the current population. And judging by this conversation we're having now, it doesn't meet the needs of the current population, unless you're looking at the fact that there are no unsheltered people. So everybody does have a shelter. So everybody is in a house, but seems like the needs are not actually, there's a lot of unhappiness
Yeah, if you
about the
just-
situation.
I agree. I think the wording could be changed on that, because that struck me as a little
On
painful
paper,
when I
on
read that.
paper it does.
I
They're
actually
saying
agree
that,
with that,
but it's not.
but
We're
again,
at
yeah, I mean,
106
there
and
is
we live
shelter.
800 square feet in my house with one bathroom. There are 6 human beings living in my home of 800 square feet. I know that's like not a burden of the general community, but I'm just saying, like, it is increasingly unrealistic for young families to make communities like this viable options, and there's a lot to consider in the overall conversation.
I have made a note of that and will pass that to AML to rework that statement.
This is just an idea, but I'm just wondering if the Kenai Peninsula Borough might consider giving some kind of a tax break to to some of the homes that are not occupied. If somebody were to rent them, maybe there might be something like that that could offer at least an incentive for housing. And I don't know what that might look like, but I know overall the Kenai Peninsula Borough is dealing with, we a lot of the easy land has been developed, and so we're going more and more into more expensive places to develop, to do property development. So using existing buildings there, if there's a way to do that, and maybe there's some people who haven't come back to Seldovia for a while, and maybe they would be, if there was an incentive, maybe there would be, if that would, encourage them to provide rental, because it seems like there's an opportunity, or obviously there's a mismatch with the amount of housing we have and people not being able to get affordable housing or attainable housing. But if there's a way to connect the people that need housing with the people that have vacant housing, maybe that even if you had 10 or 15 houses that where the answer would be a yes, that might actually
Some sort of rate system where if it was occupied, you got one rate, and if it was unoccupied for a percent of the year, then you had a different rate. Like, if you have a lovely little McMansion, But you're only there like a couple weekends a year, then maybe your rate's a little different than someone who's trying to like, stay in the community and work in the community and make it through the year. I just don't know. I
Yeah,
mean,
I don't-
think that
I don't know.
unfortunately, like, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like I'd like to be wrong, most of the houses that are unoccupied at this point are kind of those ones that, they only kind of come back seasonally for songs on the slough or something. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if a lot of those unoccupied houses are something that they'd be willing to rent out. I'm not sure
Okay.
what that looks like.
And then Ashley, I see you have your hand
Yeah,
up.
I think a good thing to add to this discussion that the borough is doing right now. I don't know if you guys saw the election results from the other week, but the tax exemption for your primary residence in Kenai Peninsula Borough went up from 50,000 to 75,000. You do have to reapply, so don't forget to do that if you qualify. But that does kind of go around these parameters that you only get that exemption if it's your primary residence. So,
Mhm.
it's not that more more will be helpful because we've had that exemption of the 50,000 before, and then that is something that's different than the exemption that you get for being a senior. But then that gives some others of us that do live full time a little something. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you.
So if there's nothing else on this topic, I mean, this is a big topic and it's going to continue throughout this plan. And I like how Councilmember Payton pointed out that the goal is, what the plan is trying to strive to do is to make that vision of what the community is and then work towards it. So there is a housing needs assessment in here as a action, as well as professional housing for teachers and
Public safety.
public safety and clinic workers. So those things are in here. And hopefully as we go through, if there's other things that you catch your eye that need to be included, please let us know, as well as if there's anything that doesn't make sense that needs to be removed. The next page on page 11 is that community vision. I won't read it all out to you if you guys want to take a minute to read it. And I know that our chair, Randy, had an idea as well for a header. So I'll let her take that.
And so after looking at this, I thought it would be good to have a specific vision statement so that it's clear what that is, and so if these are just possibilities. This isn't prescriptive. It's just saying, so like in our, like when we look at our Seldovia, city of Seldovia has a mission statement. And if you pull some of the things out of it, you could say something like, Seldovia has a stable economy, a healthy and safe community, a quality of lifestyle respectful of the natural environment and community character with engaged residents. It's just trying to in a sort of a snapshot. I also looked on I looked on some things. I think they ended up being like AI generated, but it's like, so another example could be like Seldovia is a thriving, resilient coastal community where the natural beauty of Kachemak Bay is cherished, local culture and creativity flourish, and sustainable opportunities ensure a vibrant quality of life for generations to come. So it's just kind of like it's just a statement about what we want our community to be like at a high level. So I think the AML can probably come up with condense what we're saying in here, but just so that it's kind of like it's our waypoint. It's what we would want our community to look like, and we're clear about that. So just to include it in that way.
Yeah, that would be great. So just giving you guys a moment to read that community vision and see if that fits.
Yeah, that sentence looks a little redundant. I mean, it's very similar on the two, underneath the two headings on that page 11 there.
The summary and the vision.
Yeah. The first sentence looks very similar.
So maybe instead of the summary, making that the overarching vision.
And yeah.
Okay. Everybody had a chance to read the vision? Any comments on it? Any other updates?
I'd like to make a comment, if I may. I feel like the biggest problem on Main Street in a business district is the amount of businesses that are closed. Important businesses to the community. And they just pay the property tax and they're not getting fined or dinged or anything just to keep it closed. And I remember years ago when I worked at the city, there was a discussion about finding these people on a monthly basis to get their shops open or close them and sell them. And I don't believe anything ever happened with that. But that would be something I think we should really look into again, because there's no motivation for these people to sell their businesses or give the opportunity to somebody else. The cost of purchasing is, some are really high. And, for the average person to come over here and start a business, they're looking at a big overhead right off the bat. But I think that what's choking out the city Main Street business district is these businesses that are closed and not being fined or anything. There's no consequence for that. And that's been like that for years. And every once in a while, somebody comes along, they want to make a go of it. They last about a year. There has to be an answer to these deadbeat businesses that aren't doing anything with the property. And it looks like a ghost town when you come to Seldovia. You've got 2 or 3 businesses open. And I think that it's something that only way to change it is do a forcible change to these business owners that aren't doing anything, because it's choking out Seldovia. That's all. Thank you.
I'd like to second that. There's nothing sadder than walking down that street and see it's all closed up. And yeah, they hold on to this. How long was the mad fish there before it was sold? And maybe if they had some sort of penalty for owning it and not using it, then they would have like come down in price. They would have like sold it quicker, but they're too expensive to move into. Most people can't do that. I mean, there has to be some sort of economic incentive for them to like start a business there, and really, if they're not going to be using it, they need to sell it. And also, probably gonna regret voting me in here, but the bed and breakfast on Main Street is inappropriate to me. I mean, I'm happy that at least, something's thriving there, but You know, we need businesses along that main street where people can come in, shops that they could shop in. They come in off those tour boats and they can walk along and go, oh, this community is alive and, you know. So it's gotta have some reason to come here and stay, you know. They get off the ship, they walk around and then they try to spend as soon as possible. There's nothing for them to do, you know. We have to, I mean, if you want tourists to come here, you gotta give them a couple places to eat, some places to shop at, something, you know.
So I would like to offer just some additional information. We had a study group on the commercial business district. It's been changed. The name's going to be changing to the central business district. Okay, so it's in our code now. So one aspect of businesses in our community is that people can't break even if they are open year round. They just cannot. And if you can't break even, you can't afford to do that for very long because you'll just go bankrupt yourself. So that's one part of having a business in Seldovia. You know, if you've got several $100s or thousands of dollars going out, if it's a larger building, if you're heating it, and if you're bringing in a few $100s and you're just not breaking even, you know that you can't do that forever. I mean, unless you're independently wealthy. So that's the overhead problem. That's a real issue for people who operate businesses. And so our businesses in Seldovia, a lot of them are seasonal.
But they're not open in the summer.
I don't know, the Linwood's open.
Yeah, we do
But-
have some.
Yeah. So one other thing is just because you don't see the business doesn't mean somebody isn't operating a business. Because one of the things that we found was that you need to operate a business, and there are people operating a business, but it may be a private business. It may not be a walk-in type of business. It's just something that they have as a business that they operate. So you don't want to necessarily assume somebody doesn't have a business if you don't have a storefront. Traditionally, the way people's expectations have been is like having retail businesses, having people come in and shop and do that. So, as a city, our municipal code does not require them to be retail businesses. So just so that, and you may think that they should still operate it and be open year round, but so that's just part of the conversation.
Through the chair, so a little bit more background. That work group was about 1.5 years long, and it contained a lot of the business owners in the community. So it was a really great feedback experience to hear about the hardships that are being faced along Main Street. Allison Ryan was our representative from the Planning Commission, and she probably has a lot more details on it. And I would say, really, when we're going through this plan and we're thinking about it, we're trying to address those. We're trying to address those concerns and the needs. The things, it's hearing the conversation here. These are conversations that have been ongoing for a long time. And so there's some overarching issues of how do we support these businesses? How do we support people with jobs? How do we support people with houses? And really, hopefully, trying to get to them in a holistic manner. But it hasn't come to fruition yet. So I'm really hoping as we review this and keep going through the plan, you guys can continue to provide those ideas and input on things that could make a difference, because that's the goal.
Okay. And I guess, what ideas would you have? I mean, you had some ideas about that were punitive, and do you see any kinds of ways of encouraging businesses so that they can, so that they can stay, because it is a struggle. So,
Well, I have a question before we move on. And you said that these businesses aren't exactly public. Are these non-public businesses on Main Street? Or are they just in their own home, a business? Or, I mean, I think when you think of Main Street Business District, I think of businesses open to the public.
and they're not required to be, not by the
Yeah.
code.
So through the chair, there is a land use table and there are businesses that are not allowed on Main Street. One of your points about rentals, that was something that through the working group and through the planning commission and then up to the council level, for the sitting council at the time, they did allow for rentals to be a primary business purpose in the district. So that is now an allowance. Since that ordinance passed, it just was a couple months ago.
Rentals as in residential rentals?
10% of the district can be residential rentals, and then nightly rentals are an allowed primary purpose. And I think that was in a way to work with the property owners as part of the discussion. And you can go back and listen to the meetings and the ordinance is available online, but it's actually being codified on Monday. So then you'll have a copy of it as part of your whole code. But there was a lot of discussion on how to work with the businesses to make it more viable, and that it's a struggle even to have 2 or 3 restaurants. It's a struggle to have, multiple gift stores. When they start competing with each other, it becomes an issue. So there's been talk about trying to look at an overall plan or like I said, a more holistic approach of how much business can Seldovia afford? And then also, how do we bring more people into Seldovia so that we can grow and have more business? So that it's like an onion. There's a lot of layers.
I bet. Well, I think one of what you just said about having more than one restaurant or more than one gift shop. Do you think other cities like Kenai or Soldotna give 2 craps? No, they don't. It's business. And yes, we're a smaller community, but it's not. You're trying to make your business go too. Only solution I can say is have something different. If you're going to have 2 restaurants,
Different type of restaurant.
I'm talking the Linwood and Jack and Ava's. They had different menus.
Mhm.
It worked out good. But and the Breezy's got a business going. She serves totally different foods at different times. I mean, there's ways around it to, I'm just saying there's ways around it, but you shouldn't go into business thinking, well, I don't want to step on so-and-so's toes because they're having lunch at noon. I mean, I don't think businesses they do a what is it? A plan of testing in your community what the need is, but I don't think that you should go into a business, and even in a small community, worrying about what the next guy's serving or what's in this gift shop. We've had more than one gift shop here. We've had 3 of them at one time.
What about an incentive program? I mean, because if it was a retail space or open to the public, would the city be willing to reduce their rates for that as an incentive for them? Because that's, I mean, you might think, oh, it's just such a significant
We don't.
cost, but
Did
that.
look at that, and the city can't afford to, we can't afford to, you can't afford to give a
But it's
discount.
catch-22 though. I mean, if you don't have the businesses up and running, then you're not going to get the revenue from them. So,
And so it sounds like this, I think this is kind of going where we should talk about this more in the future, and see because what we should continue on with the with the
Yeah, and I
review of the
apologize.
plan.
I'm
No,
sorry.
Yeah.
no,
I'm a
no.
New council member
I
and wasn't there for
No,
the
no.
meeting, so I do apologize.
And I understand and
Just trying to catch
we'll
up.
continue to look at it. I think the key thing is it's the whole issue of economic development and having people and having housing, all of these things that we're talking about in this plan, but what is it that we can do to help, to help our community grow and develop in the way that we want it to? And so we'll continue to talk about it. Go ahead, Council or Roger. Thank you.
Yeah, the town basically rolls up at Labor Day, I mean. Once ferry stop and all that, our town shuts down. So, there ain't, you could have as many cafe, basically it's on tourists anyway, so. It's gonna get lean during the winter.
So through the chair, if we could get to the meat of the plan, there are business support goals in here. There's business incentive goals in here. I mean, this should hopefully help us with a path forward in the future, and may address a lot of these concerns. That's the hope, is it's going to address these concerns. So please let us know if it doesn't. I won't spend too much time on page 13, but it does talk about how community voices, through the survey and through the town hall and through various meetings, have helped lead to these strategic pillars. And just gives again a little overview of how those community voices shaped each of the pillars in the plan. And then on page 15 is a nice little table if you just want to see each pillars in the light blue header with the goals underneath on the left and then the actions beside it. So it's just a quick overview. And again, you can see E12 is support local businesses. E13, create and implement a collaborative economic strategy. There's a lot in here, including E51, economic resilience plan, E52, energy cost reduction, E46, event and festival infrastructure, and then so on and so forth through each pillar, land use, goals, with the actions beside it, transportation, goals with the action beside it. Would it be helpful if you guys have a section to go, have a few minutes to go through and read this table? And then after the table, we can go, there's more information even following that regarding each pillar, the goals and the actions underneath. But perhaps would that be helpful if you guys have time to just get a good quick glance at what those goals are and the actions that go with them? And remember, there's not a lot of detail because it's just an overview, the overheading, and we'll get into the discussion when we go to each section with the more in-depth information about each one.
Did I lose you guys, or are we just studying hard?
I did read this, so I mean, I just have in my own defense, like, I had read it. It's just,
We're having a little reading time.
we're having a little, going back over it's a good idea.
Love it.
Huge, huh?
So if everybody's had a chance to go, oh, sorry. If everybody's had a chance to just go through that table, it's a quick overview. We can jump into economy and talk about them a little bit more in depth. So there's going to be a desired future conditions at the beginning of each pillar, and then the goals and actions underneath. Goal 1 being to increase the availability and quality of year-round employment. Some of those actions are to improve telecommunications, support local businesses, create and implement a collaborative economic strategy. And then you can see the details underneath each of those. So, in telecommunications is ensuring speeds and reliability that make remote work viable and competitive. A lot of these, I will also say, are things that we're already working on. So for instance, with improved telecommunications, we've worked with the state, we've worked with the borough, we've worked with KPED, we've worked with Seldovia Village Tribe, who submitted multiple applications to increase fiber into the community. Sounds like with transition of administration and everything else, that nothing has gone through yet, but there's still hope out there that in time we will be able to see fiber come to the community and better telecommunications. The tower was a big improvement, and being able to have the microwave there, but they're still borrowing power from ACS, and they're still limited. I don't know the correct words, but the bandwidth, because we don't have the fiber, right? We're on copper. There's still limited capabilities, but Starlink, we're seeing improvements, and there's a desire in the community to continue to see that. So support local businesses was a couple of goals previously, and it's at the council's request become one overarching action to foster and grow sustainability of local businesses by identifying and promoting access to technical assistance, shared marketing resources, and fiscal incentives that reward local investments, such as seed capital programs, storefront improvement programs, variable property tax rates, which is something that was brought up before. It's been brought up multiple times over many years. Tax holidays for local purchases, and low-cost access to municipal spaces for year-round operators. And then number 3, that create and implement a collaborative economic strategy, working with Seldovia Native Association, Seldovia Village Tribe, and Kenai Peninsula Borough, State of Alaska, and private stakeholders to identify shared priorities for business growth, market expansion, and local job creation. And that is something that has been in the capital improvement plan for several years, is to complete that collaborative economic strategy. Those plans can range near $300,000. I've seen some of them recently. So it's a matter of funding and partnerships and being able to put the pieces together to make the plan. But it's definitely a goal that is ongoing within the city. And the comprehensive plan, the CIP. Any comments on that first goal, goal and the actions underneath? Any additions? And if you have stuff after this meeting, you can still, once you've had time to digest, definitely let us know. And that can be incorporated either before the public comment period, depending on when we receive them, or after. Because this plan is your plan. It's the community's plan. So it should work for everybody, or most everybody. Goal 2, develop Seldovia's workforce. Again, a discussion that was just recently held. And in that, you can see a desire for a thriving economy requires a workforce whose skills match the needs of both traditional and emerging industries. Seldovia can achieve this by cultivating a culture of lifelong learning, mentorship, and targeted training. First action under that goal is actively support youth and family. So again, continuing to collaborate with some of our local organizations to enhance schools programming, extracurricular activities and facilities, making Seldovia an attractive place for families to live and raise children. Number 2 action, housing for educators and seasonal workers. We just had that discussion. So expand housing availability for teachers, trainers, and seasonal employees to attract and retain critical talent. For you city council members, that's something to think about as we move through the capital improvement plan, or as you move through it, because there was a rural professional housing development goal in the capital improvement plan that I actually just recommended to remove, so that the housing assessment could happen first, so that you can determine what those needs are after having several discussions about the plan. So it could go back in there if you guys want more of a focus on that rural professional housing in the immediate future, or if you want that housing plan to come first and then follow with whatever development action plans that need to happen afterwards. It seemed like the plan needed to come first, but I'm happy to hear back from you guys how you want that to work. And then E23 is career pathway partnerships. So strengthening the links between local employers. Kasittna Bay Lab, that was a big one in the 2014 plan, was Kasittna Bay Lab, came up over and over again. And you'll see some of that repeated through this plan. And regional learning programs to create clear supported pathways from school to local careers. So that's the goal E2 for developing Seldovia's workforce. And if nothing on that right at this moment, goal E3, grow Seldovia's marine economy. Again, a huge focus in the 2014 plan that continues to carry through. And it's kind of the vein, or one of the veins of the city, is our as a coastal community. So Seldovia's identity is inseparable from the sea, expanding maritime industries from fishing and seafood processing to vessel servicing and marine tourism. That's builds resilience and keeps the working waterfront alive. So again, talking about that waterfront and being on the coast. And that one has 6 actions underneath, and the deep water dock strategic upkeep and upgrades. That's a new action in this plan. There was not a lot in the 2014 plan that talked about upkeeping and maintaining city infrastructure, which is crazy because the capital improvement plan is all about upkeeping and maintaining city infrastructure. So definitely honing in on this plan a little bit more about those priorities that have been set by the council in the recent years. Number 2 being boat harbor improvements and expansion. Number 3 being boat haul out, storage, and marine services. The council did put some money towards that in this FY26 budget. So we'll for the electric repair in the boatyard. So we should be seeing that in the spring. And even with the boat harbor improvements, every year money is put back into the budget from the port fee to continue to improve and work on that harbor. So it's small, but it's a little bit at a time that finger hinges, pins are replaced, and cleats are replaced, and pedestals are next on the list. We'll have to start going through all electric pedestals, but trying to just do small improvements until there's an opportunity to do some large ones. E3-4, the cannery property value added processing. That is that value added building. So partnering with private enterprise to redevelop the key waterfront property into a hub for seafood processing, mariculture, or marine compatible industry. That is a goal in this plan. E3-5, city fuel sales and marine support services. And these last ones were in the previous plan and have transferred over into this plan, including the value added processing one. So these have been goals for a very long time. And hopefully we can start making some headway. E3-5 city fuel sales and marine support services, research appropriate mechanisms to better serve the fishing fleet, keep costs competitive, and generate municipal revenue, including exploring public-private partnerships or city-run fuel and ice production. The city and the Chamber of Commerce recently had a grant application that they submitted, that part of it included finishing that value-added building and including an ice plant. Unfortunately, we didn't receive the grant, but that is something that has been looked at in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce in the past. And we have seen a continued desire to see some kind of a marine support in that facility. And then E36, leverage northern ice-free port advantage. And that's to develop strategies to attract new commercial research and logistical operations that benefit from Seldovia's position as the northernmost ice-free port in the region. If you guys drive by the city dock tonight, you will see a large vessel moored to our dock. And that's part of it, is that it sounds like maybe there was a time in Seldovia's past where there wasn't as much welcome to larger vessels coming in the winter. Certainly Harbor Master Layla Jant Peterson is in support of that. And so she continues to network and make relationships, bringing barges in the winter. Western Marine was here last year. I think they're going to be partly here this year. And then also offering the dock for short term. They have to be hot boats, so they have to be able to untie quickly and run away if somebody else needs the dock. But those little things do bring in some income or some revenue, and puts the word out there that Seldovia is open for business and brings people in. So you'll see it there tonight. And I don't know if I should say, maybe I'm spoiling it, but I believe that one of the new Coast Guard ice cutters will be here in 2 weeks. So she's going to be pretty on the dock.
Lots of photos.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, we need to bring the kids down. Everybody needs to see it.
No, it's true. That's a great
Are they
idea.
going to have an open house or?
Oh, but that's a good question.
That'd be great for the school.
Yeah, we'll ask.
Some of those kids would be interested in
Yeah.
We'll
going
ask.
that way. Who knows?
So definitely,
Open
trying
boat, no.
to work on each of these and keeping them at the forefront to continue to work on them. Anything for goal E3 at the moment? I'll go into the last two real quick, and then we can talk about economy overall. So goal E4, enhance tourism industry and recreational opportunities. Talking about how tourism helps Seldovia thrive and visitors feel welcomed and engaged and connected to the place. So E4-1, historic boardwalk maintenance and water access. The historic boardwalk is, just starting to deteriorate as it does, and is in the CIP as a high priority project. We definitely need to start replacing. We've replaced some of the boards, but it's a pretty big investment to replace all of the boards. So looking at funding opportunities or ideas for that. We have some citizens who have been pretty outspoken about it on the boardwalk. That would like it repaired sooner than later. But as you can see, as we go through this plan, there are a lot of competing priorities. So that's where it's helpful to have the input from the council and the planning commission. They look at this plan and they look at the CIP as well, on what is prioritized first, because we can only work through so much at a time.
And just to interject on acronyms, the CIP is the Capital Improvement Plan.
Yes, thank you. And that's updated annually, and those are the priorities for capital projects that the council would like to see staff move through in the next 5 years. So within that 5 years, we try to make progress on every priority. I think the mayor counted them last time. I can't remember. It was some 40 something projects. It was like 48 projects, and 17 of them were number ones. It was just really impressive. It's getting better because we are making a lot of progress, and it all takes time. So E1, historic boardwalks, maintenance and water access. E42, outdoor recreation management, and that's coordinating improvements to key attractions such as Outside Beach, Wilderness Park, Otterbond Trail, and Rocky Ridge Trail. E43, Jack Lock Dock improvements, which you are probably all aware we are working through, and hopefully we'll have done in the next the next year if we have anything to say about it. E44, enhanced backcountry access. Again, these are carryovers from the last plan, but that's to develop new land and water trails in partnership with landowners, tourism operators, and conservation groups catering to a range of abilities and interests. E45, create and implement a comprehensive tourism strategy, so similar to the economic development. Just really honing in the fact that we need to have a coordinated marketing and visitor management plan that extends the season, supports niche markets, and ensures visitor experiences aligns with community values. And then the last one, E46, event and festival infrastructure. Establish a dedicated event space with utilities and amenities to host markets, performances, and seasonal festivals. This is a new one. There was one similar in the 2014 plan that was more focused towards the Harbor Gateway Pavilion. This is a new request that came out of the town hall and that we've heard from the Arts Council and the Chamber of Commerce to have a designated space for venue, or a designated venue for performances and festivals and such. And if you haven't noted yet, it's competing currently with where it's at with that value added building in the marine industry. So something to think about as we move forward is in space planning and community and city property planning on what that looks like if there's a way to share. The council so far has been supportive of allowing that space to be utilized as a venue with support that, you know, something is happening there. There is some economic benefit and improvement in the CIP there in the capital improvement plan. Again, the value added building is in there, and there's also in there a heavy equipment storage complex with the hope that we can continue to move our stuff out of the value added building and into a space outside of the inundation zone and continue to improve that property so that it can be used, whether that's a marine industry, whether that's recreation, whatever that looks like. That'll be part of a discussion moving forward, is the vision for that area. And then depending on what happens there, how to support the other needs. And goal E5, respond effectively to changes in the economic climate. So Seldovia's economy is tied to global markets, state and federal policies, and resource conditions. Planning for volatility, the community can adapt and continue to thrive. E51 is economic resilience planning. And then E52 is energy cost reduction. So continue investments in renewable energy and bulk fuel purchasing to stabilize and lower household and business utility costs. That is the first pillar, and we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and feedback on where it meets. There was a preface, a preface it to these goals is that they can have a benefit for multiple pillars, and you'll see that as we go through. So something might be listed in here, but it's going to benefit the other pillars and be appropriate in that area as well, but it won't be listed there, and vice versa. So as we go through the plan, you'll see ones that do meet the economic overhead, but they're placed in other pillar categories depending on what they are. So hoping for a little cohesion in the plan. They're all supposed to be going the same direction. Any feedback on economy, Jack? You.
I could fix these problems in a couple of years.
Has there been any, and I'm sure there probably has, you guys are so thorough and this document is amazing. It just really touches upon all the really important aspects of creating a sustainable economy here. Of course, you know, my vote is always support marine services, because honestly, I think that's going to bring in the revenue and be the long-term sustainable thing. I mean, I love the festivals too, but that's anyway, whatever. But have we thought at all about like having like Seward has their AvTech? You know, what if we had, we're talking about training and getting, you know, keeping kids here in the community and whatever, but wouldn't that bring a bunch of kids over, families over? You know, we'd have those skills developed here that this community itself could use, you know, to grow this marine support environment or whatever it happens to be. But I mean, maybe that's a pie in the sky thing, but seemed to work out okay for Seward.
Are there any collaborative efforts like, I mean, is like the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District working with AvTech and KPC to help, like, is there, I mean, we have distance learning, and if you had, maybe we can't have AvTech here, but if we had like periodic training where people could come in for it, it's like, how do we use those resources to leverage them so that we can help support just development of, I mean, kids and adults, you know, for the skills that we need in our community.
We need those skills.
Yeah.
A lot of communities need those skills. And with AI and everything that can, you know, I don't know how many computer jobs we used to think that was going to be the way of it, but we need people who can fix things and build things and yeah, I don't know. And, you know, and bringing an interest into this community. It's, you know, families that come in to want their kids to go to school here, they might just fall in love with it and want to make it their home. I think that there's so many wins there. We've just got that quality of life that's incredible.
Through the chair, should we include under E23 career pathway partnerships, AvTech training programs? As another example.
I would think so. And then it's just, if there's, I guess it's that collaborate, it's like, and KPC and the Kenai Peninsula School District, it's like, is there some kind of an integrated partnership that could leverage all the educational career development organizations within our, because it's all in our borough. So is there a way to harness those resources?
Yes. I think what you guys are referring to is CTE. I don't know why that hasn't just been said. That is something that our current principal is very adept at coordinating. She's already has an ongoing conversation and effort with the chamber. I think instead of trying to like have 3 separate entities within the community trying to like spearhead the conversation and going in different directions, that's when you create strife amongst friends. That's when you create issues. You know, you have too many people, too many chefs in the kitchen. This, like, if the city wants to help further the conversation happening at the school level, that is reasonable. But the city does not need to take on the school's job. You know, should we have more opportunities for secondary education for our children? Yes. Is it the city's job to make that happen? Maybe, but not in lieu of the existing educational structure. I think if this is a component of the conversation we would like to see moving forward, no, it's not. I'm not on mute. Don't. We need to invite the existing stakeholders in the conversation to this conversation so that we don't have overlap and we don't create contention that doesn't need to exist.
I'm so sorry. I was under the impression when I was talking about the AvTech school that it was something that they, high school kids, you know, would go into, you know, and instead of like college level. I wasn't thinking of it, but yeah.
So through the chair, to maybe take care of some of this confusion. This plan is not saying that the city is going to do every single one of these things. A lot of these things are collaborative. And what the saying is the city is supporting and wanting to help work towards them. There is a whole section in the back on partnerships, including the borough and the school and so if you guys don't want it in here because the city's not directly doing it, we can cross it out. But if you want it in here as something that you're saying, hey, we don't mind putting a little bit of staff time towards, we don't mind putting a little resources towards, we don't mind having this be a priority of the community, then leave it in there. But if you don't want it to be a priority and something that you're putting city time towards, and I'm not saying having to run every single thing in here, then take it out.
Yeah, and we just got through, like, I know we have a couple of new council members. I know at least one of you, I know you guys have been a part of this conversation. We just got out of like a 3-year back and forth regarding the previous plan and how the public's perception on our obligation to fulfill these dreams, or however lofty or seemingly menial they be. Would it be great to have some sort of like partnership like that or opportunity in our community? Yes. Is that a goal we should strive for? Yes. Is that something we want to put in this document? I do not think that's a good idea. That holds us accountable to something that may not be reasonable for us to achieve, nor is it necessarily the city's place to do so.
So through the chair, can we double back Councilmember Payton to E23 career pathways partnerships and look at the words there that says strengthen links between local employers, and then we'll talk about the other areas and regional learning programs to create clear supported pathways from school to local careers. Not saying we're going to do it, make those pathways, but that we're strengthening the links. Is that still not fitting? Is that still not something you want in there? Is the city to be a part of that conversation?
Strength, that is a distinctly different conversation than saying that the city needs to look for, help fund, or help create the bridge between education, upper education, and the community at large. Should we be a supporting member? Should we write letters in support of those types of initiatives? Yes. Should we be spending money that we don't have, taxpayer money that we don't have, raising rates on our community members and overtaxing our staff members with time that they don't have on such a broad and honestly like bottomless conversation? No.
So through the chair, are you asking us to remove E23 from the plan?
No, I'm not. I'm saying we do not need to expand upon that statement to include
Other
any more
partners?
infrastructure. Yeah.
So no more partners in the plan. Not including KPC or KPBSD. We're gonna, or career technical pathways, we're gonna not expand on our partners.
What does this even mean? This is like strengthening links between local employers, the System A lab, and regional learning programs to create clear, supported pathways from school to local careers.
Yeah.
What is your vision in making that statement?
I'm sorry. Well, I didn't make that statement, but this statement was in the 2014 plan and is carried through. So I believe that the vision is that the city is part of that conversation of encouraging and supporting, whether that means, hey, we have a warehouse and you guys can come in and use that for AbTech. We have a property near the airport if you want to come and utilize that to stand on while you're getting ready for flight. I don't know what it looks like, but I think what the value of having it in here is saying that the city wants to support career pathways within the community. But I could be off base. So I'm going to stop talking because this is not my table. This is your guys' table. And maybe we can give some of the other council members a turn to think about if this belongs in the plan or not. And planning commission members.
I believe it 100% belongs in the plan. I agree with Heidi. I mean, if you've got a warehouse they can use, let them use it. I don't see there's anything wrong with saying that the city will support. That next step that maybe some of our graduating kids want to take, or maybe it brings some other kids into this community and other families in this community. I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. I think it really goes in line with the statement of this whole document.
I mean, even DOT could put on here because
Right.
the city does regularly coordinate and talk to DOT. And so that's a partnership that could help.
I think that's what a community is. And the city is part of the community.
I think that what Heidi or Harmony's trying to say is strengthening and responsibility. Is the city going to be responsible for every aspect if AFTEC did come in here?
Yeah, it feels
I
more
mean, are
like
you going to be supporting?
intentional misinterpretation of my words there.
Yeah, I think it was the wording.
So the title is Career Pathways Partnerships. Is there a way to make that clear that we're talking about partnerships?
Well, it seems more like opening communication at this point.
Hey, Amon, your original statement, was that in response to the E23 line, or were you asking to add something in addition? Perhaps that was the initial misunderstanding.
I was responding to the E23 line and I liked the option of expanding it as well. I appreciated the statements from both, Randy and I'm so sorry, Miss Sweet and Heidi. In response to my comment, I
Okay,
think
so
I made it
this
very
is
clear that
not
I
the
agree
place.
with that pathway.
The city is not the place for taking on that onus. This line here is more than reasonable. The city absolutely does, always has, and should continue to do so, support educational opportunities for its students, however is reasonable for this entity. It is not at this time a reasonable expectation of the staff that we have, the monies that we have, for us as an entity or a body to take on the ownership, responsibility, or initiative of creating higher educational or secondary educational opportunities. That is not within our purview. And how are we expecting to create housing, support jobs, incentivize lower taxes or business ownership and education? Should we be supporting those things? Yes. Can we afford to do those things as an entity ourselves? No. Will we write letters of support? Obviously. Will we continue to volunteer to make those efforts happen? Obviously. Obviously, I am a person within this community who supports education. I've done nothing but that for the last 12 years that I've lived here. But I also understand that there is a time and a place. And when you consolidate a conversation inappropriately, you lose out on the value of the broader conversation. And when you misplace responsibility, it decreases the value that the entity can put into a project. The city does not have the capacity to take on a project like upper education. Of course, we're going to support our students. Of course, we're going to support our younger adults. Of course, we're going to support education and economic growth in our community. No, we do not need to broaden this statement. No, we do not. Yes, make an in-kind donation of space to a program if it becomes available. No, do not put language in our plan and in our code that states that we are legally obligated to do so in lieu of another reasonable economic opportunity.
Did we get a lunch break?
Or at least a pee break.
Well, maybe just support and encourage the education and career pathways by open dialogue and
What?
I think we need a 5-minute recess. We're losing people.
Okay, we'll take a short bio break. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
Any of my
Okay, I'm gonna,
Oh, me as a little kid? That looks a lot like yours.
this is the Seldovia Planning Commission and City Council joint session coming back to order. I just want to check in with everybody. What I'd like to do is, I believe individuals have reviewed the plan, and we have been having discussions, and because of just having the discussion, and it kind of leads into further discussion, but our goal today is to get any feedback that the council members or the planning commissioners have on the plan itself. And we have 5 more pillars, and we just got done with the first one. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to take a pause on the discussion on the economic one, and I would like to go through each one of the pillars at a high level, just to ask if the commissioners have any specific comments, and the city council members have any specific comments on the remaining ones, and then we'll circle back to the economy after that.
Through the chair. So for this task, it would be probably more beneficial to flip to the end of the plan. So I'm going to skip forward through the remaining sections and just quickly touch on
Page.
Implementation under page 36, key implementation partners, and then talking about those potential roles in implementation. So something to review later, but definitely not doing this plan alone. We have a lot of partners, and we want to continue to have a lot of partners. That's one of council's priorities, is to continue to collaborate and develop those partnerships. So want to respect that as we move forward. And then on page 38 and 39, talking about the collaboration of the other plans, which I've already touched on, the capital improvement plan. We have a hazard mitigation plan, and there are some other plans that are in the works that are coming up. Does talk about housing and land use planning. There does need to be some edits there because the lump is not used the way this plan refers to it, and that's something that I've noted to AML. And then a little bit further of a section on page, or a little more discussion on page 40 of how this plan intersects with other planning documents. So this isn't the end all be all. This plan will then go on to inform other plans as we move forward and develop these partnerships and work together. And then the implementation timeline, which is touched in the beginning. So phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. And that's something to look to hold into your minds as we move into the next section. So you can see that time frame: short term, short to midterm, mid to long term, and long term. And that the accountability of this plan is that the city will review the plan progress annually. And I was thinking about this, actually, I was discussing this with Chair Sweet on how she was bringing up again how we're going to be accountable to this plan and be able to be transparent and show the public with the progress we're making. Initially, my thought is including that in the budget process. That might be a heavy lift because the budget process is already very heavy. But because the comprehensive plan should be informing the budget, and it should be informing all these other plans, and really is the backbone of everything that we're working on moving forward and in a lot of different directions, it seems like that might fit, is to have a report in that budget, and we can do it standalone as well, but definitely incorporating it into the budget on how we're moving forward. As well as, again, that key to success of having implementations to remain a living process, flexible, inclusive, and responsive. Commenting that inaction risks economic decline and erosion of community character, but measured strategic action ensures Seldovia remains a vibrant, resilient, and welcoming coastal community for generations to come. So with that, if you want to flip to page 42, This is an appendix to the plan, and it's a really good overview of each pillar, their goals and their actions, so similar to the table we saw before. But it includes a timeline and it includes those partners that can help us work through. And there is room for expansion on here on what those partners are. So I encourage or hope that each of you will take this home and spend some time on it and bring back any notes you have on the timeline, the partners, the action itself, wording, anything that you want changed, because this is kind of the crux of the whole plan, right? That we've talked about in a short format. So we've gone through economy. I'm not gonna go through that one again. But on page 44 is land use. So starting at page 44, land use, you can see the goal L1 is manage land as a strategic asset. It has 3 actions under this goal. So 3 things that we can move through to help support this goal. L11 being city asset use management and disposal guidelines. L12 voluntary service area annexation. And I'll say this is a carry forward. The next 2 are carry forwards from the 2014 plan. And the L13 being local ownership preference. You'll see beside them that they have short, long, and short mid. And then local ownership preference has partners of KPB Plating Division and KPED. L2, develop and sustain an active town center. Again, protect and support waterfront central business district. So again, talking about Main Street here, working with property owners to develop policies and programs to enhance and support primary business use in the waterfront central business district. That's a short-term goal, something we want to accomplish in the next 5 years. L22, zoning review and updates, revise zoning map and engage residents and property owners in the exploration of zoning options to ensure that zoning codes and development standards meet community needs and support a thriving central business district. This is also a short-term goal. This plan does not recommend any updates to the land use specifically. What it's calling for is for the city to take action, to have those conversations with the landowners across the city and see if there are updates that need to happen. L3, implement land use designations goal, has 5 goals underneath it, or 5 actions, I should say. Improve land data. And that's again a partnership, because we're not going to go out and do GIS data. We're going to work with KPB Planning. They provide that. And so continuing to collaborate with them to be able to utilize their maps and surveys. They print maps for us. They supply them down. That's a great partnership for us to work through. L32, pre-development services. And this is something that's been talked about recently as a goal through the Planning Commission, is to provide early guidance to property owners and developers by having resources and guidance readily available, pre-application meetings, and documented community design expectations. And that's for anybody who's going to build in the community. And that's a short-term goal. L34, code compliance enforcement program. This is a carryover from 2014. A lot of these are, but some of them I'm calling out more specifically. And that's supporting compliance through outreach and assistance, reserving enforcement for cases where voluntary resolution fails. Part of this is putting the onus on the city, and it was in the 2014 plan. It's been in recent discussions through the Planning Commission and even through the city level of putting the carrot before the stick, and that the city does have some responsibility in providing those supports and avenues to help businesses and community members succeed. So making sure that we are doing our best by providing those pre-development series, by sitting down with people, by having those discussions in order to help them have the best results. L35, remote ownership engagement, develop strategies to engage absentee or seasonal property owners. Again, this is something we've discussed tonight. And maintaining properties and contributing to community vitality, such as remote participation, planning discussions, or incentives for leasing unused commercial space. Short to long-term goal, and partners being again KPBS GIS division and local realtors. L4, provide a network of quality dedicated public spaces. There's 3 here, actions to support this goal. L41, public space inventory enhancement program, and that really is more of what our lump does, but has room to grow for that, maintaining that master inventory of public spaces with photos, maps, and maintenance needs. That's a short-term goal because we already have a structure in place. We just need to update it and make it more usable. It's not a very usable plan, and we're struggling with that. So figuring out how to do that. L42, dedicate and acquire strategic properties as parks. Again, a carryover from 2014. Identify sites of historic and cultural importance and seek to develop partnerships for preservation and maintenance. This is a long-term goal, of course. Some of the things that the city has talked about recently in acquiring are properties near Trina Lake, properties around the water treatment plant. So maybe not necessarily as parks, but those do support our recreation. The property around the water treatment plant supports Rocky Ridge Trail. Partner around Trina Lake supports Outside Beach and Outer Bond Trail. Though those aren't the direct reasons or goals for looking to acquire those properties, those are definitely benefits to having them. L43, historic preservation and cultural heritage, and that's establishing policies, programs, or design guidelines to protect historic sites and cultural landscapes. Again, not doing this on our own. Seldovia Arts Council as a partner, and I'm sure there's room to add more partners. So please, as you go through this, if you think of additional partners to put on here, let us know. If there's anything specific on land use, give it just a minute if that's okay with the chair, and then we can move on to transportation.
So through your review, does anybody have any feedback on the land use information in the strategic, in this comprehensive plan that you have? And is there any, and from the public, is there any comment on this topic?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, my name is Riley. I was asked by the Arts Council to represent them here tonight. And the Arts Council would like to make a formal request to utilize the space that we've been using the last couple summers there next to the value added building, where we've had the summer solstice event and a couple others, I think. And what we've been doing is at the last minute before a certain event, we've been kind of moving things in. We have the event, then we take it down. And it's very labor intensive, volunteer intensive. And this last year, the Arts Council, and I'm not sure who exactly owns this thing, but there was a dock and a clamshell sort of a thing that was donated that came from Halibut Cove. And the dock got floated over. I think Jack had a lot to do with that, right? Getting that dock over to the main pier, and then Stan and I, we got it into the harbor, and then it eventually now has been hauled out and is sitting up at the top of the ramp there by the outside ramp. And I believe that the Arts Council doesn't want to put that back in the water again. But the current discussion as of last night is if we can get permission from the city to utilize that lot. Now, we understand that that's zoned for something completely else, something else. But it's like, well, in the meantime, knowing that at any time at the city's discretion, they can say, hey, we've got something else going on. We have some kind of aquaculture, something coming in that goes along with the current zoning that, okay, we can vacate it. But
the city uses that a little bit. They have some storage there of building materials and stuff and do other things, but there's more than ample room to accommodate this. And the thought being that if we were able to look at that space, that maybe what we can do is have that dock drug over and use it as a stage, it's just not in the water. And then we can remount the clamshell to it and maybe make some improvements to it and provide heat and other things for the musicians that come in so that their instruments stay in tune and their fingers don't get cold. But then also maybe, you know, going around and other people in the community that donate their crab pots and things and all that is like, well, maybe we can put them in there and make more of a venue that stays there. And so that's kind of the thought. And so, you know, I'm listening to what's going on tonight, and I've noticed in my time here that the Arts Council events, they do draw in outside people and money. And one of the classic things I'm hearing tonight is money in, money out problem. And it's kind of nice when you get money that comes in and leaves. You know, because one of the issues we have is gentrification. We have to be really careful with that. So if we can promote maybe ideas or things that we can provide where people come in, drop their money and leave. It brings in money for the restaurants. It brings in money for lodging and other things. And, you know, it's kind of a start. I mean, I'm looking at this thing as well, maybe it's kind of an anchor. But one of the things that possibly we can do as the Arts Council is rather than having these keystone events, is that if we actually have a venue in place, the electrical's there, the stage is there, the seating's there, that we can have more people come in during the summertime and perform. And Seldovia can maybe be kind of like, hey, the place to go, cultural arts. You know, we have a dedicated thing. And then also to musicians and things, we say we have a venue. You know, not only will we put you up in nice accommodations, but this is the venue that you can play in. So for the time being, it's like, well, what do you do with an empty lot? You know, when I was a kid growing up in Santa Clara, California, we had a lot of open space. We used to ride our bikes, do this and do that. It's all paved over now. They call it set, you know, so, but that's the way the world goes. But in the meantime, it's like, you know, we're not asking to put in any permanent structures. We're not asking for a long-term lease or any promises as far as that goes. You know, we know that, hey, yeah, you know, but it's kind of like, you know, put it there, see what happens, see how the community responds, see how the outside world responds. Maybe it'll help give us direction about where we want to go in the future. And because I've actually been coming and going through Seldovia since 2007. It's just in the last few years that kind of, since 2018, I think I showed up in the fall. But anyway, it is a very, very unique place. I mean, even by Alaskan standards, but, you know, it's semi-remote. Yeah, it's not easy to get to, but it is easy to get to. And we have just beautiful. And it's just, you know, even today, it's like, holy smokes. You can see right across, you know, Cook Inlet. And everybody that comes here, they see it and they feel it and they enjoy it. And they always comment. So I know we're looking at maybe traditional things like aquaculture or marine services, but maybe also in the vision, it's like, well, what do we have that nobody else has, and let's preserve it. But also, maybe we can do some improvements where, like with this performing arts venue, all right, it's a destination, and maybe that'll lead to something bigger, but see how it goes. But, you know, in the meantime, it's like, hey, we're ready to go. We've got the dock sitting there and we have some other ideas and all that. But the one thing we just need is like, sure, you have our permission, go for it. And we'll work with the city as far as where we would put the boundaries and all that, talk to the people in the city staff that use the lot. It's like, okay, what can we do to work here? There's also the possibility in the winter time that the skating rink goes there. There's a lot of just open-ended things, but none of it can really get a foothold until we just get permission. And then once we get permission, it also comes with the promise that we will work very closely with city staff and city employees so that nobody's getting their toes stepped on, that it's a win-win for everybody. And that's it. That's it in a nutshell.
Okay, and so I guess just from what you can do next is if you talk with the city manager, and then if you guys can work it out, and then whatever see where you get to on that, and then it would come to, I don't know if it needs to come to a decision-making body or recommending, but at least it can get the first kind of the beginning of the conversation to get the scope of work kind of settled, and then go from there. So does that sound like a way to go forward?
Yes, that would be wonderful. And it would be great if we got the go ahead, fairly soon, because what we want to do is going to require some time and it's going to be winter time. But it'd be really nice if by the time the summer solstice rolls around, that we'd have something, pretty much, there and in place, and it's not a last minute thing. And so, yeah.
Okay.
And I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be fun for everybody involved, if nothing else, something to do. And the thing is really, it kind of looks like coming in to Sydney Harbor. It does. You come around the point when you come in on the ferry or whatever.
Okay.
It's kind of cool. It's kind of a cool little venue there. And it's and I'm going to talk to, if we get to go ahead, I'm going to talk to some people who are storing their crab pots and things and say, hey, we'll store them for you, but we can use them to delineate boundaries and do things and kind of do it in a kind of an artsy way, Seldovia history. And we do have the fishing history here and just, make it nice. So, okay.
Okay, well, thanks for bringing the idea forward, and please talk to Heidi and we'll go forward from there, and you'll go forward from there. So I'm gonna swing back to the land use. We just went through that. No specific comments back from the council members or commissioners. I did want to just sort of look at this one moment through the lens of responsibility, because one of the things that was just talked about in the council member Hope was the key aspect of responsibility. And I previously have had a conversation with the city manager about this, in terms of the plan is to be very clear about who is responsible for the specific actions, because some of them are with the city and some of them are with other entities, because it's a community plan. So I think that's an aspect in how we identify things. I don't know if in this particular this specific format, if it should be identified as maybe responsible individual or responsible organization, and that could be in bold, and the partners could be otherwise identified. But I think that the the issue of responsibility is very important. So just thinking about, the activities that have to do with the marine, with the harbor and all that, that makes sense that it would hold with the harbor master. So I think there's some things that are very clear that are, if you're managing the harbor and it's and maintaining and operating the harbor properly, that would obviously go with that person's job description. And so then it's very specific. There's other things that are more strategic that there might be a few partners that are working on it, but I think it's important to recognize what Councilmember Hope identified it as being clear about responsibility, because that way, if things are being done, the person or the organization that's responsible for that should be clear to everybody. So I think I think just at a general level, if that feedback can be provided. And then does anybody have any feedback on what I've just said in terms of responsibility and clarity?
Are you speaking about what Wally is suggesting? Or were you talking about
Not specifically about what he was suggesting, just within the plan itself. So there's all these activities and tasks.
Great.
And if you have things that you're saying need to be done, if somebody's responsible for it, they should know it.
Yeah.
And then also if you're checking to see if it's being done, then you know who to go to ask about it. So it's just trying to get clarity on this. And then obviously, like for example, on the career pathways, the city's not responsible for that, but it is a supporter of those types of activities. So it's just, and if we're able to clarify that, then that way we know if we're in a supporting capacity or if we're in a direct responsibility.
Well, support sounds almost like financial support in some contexts, and maybe you just like use words like encourage or advocate or facilitate or inspire. I don't know.
Okay, point taken.
I have a comment on that. I don't think this plan should assign responsibility to a different entity without them being on board that they want to take that responsibility on.
Right.
So maybe it would be good to identify which goals or actions are definitely city, and the rest of it is you just list the partners, and that's all that needs to be done. Don't necessarily assign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't think for the large part that actually is in the document. Right.
Through the chair, we can work on that.
Okay. And then I guess the next item is transportation.
Correct. So if nothing else on land use, transportation, again, going through on a high level, we have 3 goals and various actions to meet those goals. First goal being retain safe and well-timed water-based transportation options. Working T1 is to work with AMHS for sustained service. That is a long-term goal because that's something that is continuous and ongoing, and is also a council priority under the continued collaboration and partnership. So working with AMHS, and it also includes passenger vessels in Catchment Bay, ensuring year-round, cost-effective and timely service, ensure maintenance and improvements to dock facilities. So again, we have talked about the dock earlier, and this is the city's portion of that, is to ensure maintenance and improvements to dock facilities for safety and ongoing, and that's a city responsibility. T12, private ferry and water taxi partnerships. So that's collaborating, and maybe that's a word we're looking for there, Mr. Kroll. Collaborate with private ferry operators and the Seldovia Village Tribe to expand seasonal and shoulder season water taxi services with coordinated scheduling and ticketing. And even I think under partnerships, we can include the Chamber of Commerce, because I have sat in on a lot of commerce meetings over the last couple of years, and that is something that they continue to work towards as a goal. Dockside infrastructure is number 3, and that's enhancing amenities such as sheltered waiting areas, parking, handicap accessibility, and visitor information kiosks at ferry and water taxi terminals, in parentheses, Jack Loft Dock, to improve the travel experience. That's a long-term goal. And again, that is one that's in there from the 2014 plan. In fact, all 3 of these are with partners of AMHS and SVT Ferry. And then under goal 2, retain the airport and enhance air services. So first we talked about water transportation. Under transportation, now we're talking about air transportation. And of course, these are all in partnership with DOT, because DOT, it's a state-owned airport. So city is not going to be the responsible partner for any of these projects, but it is something that we can advocate for and discuss as we continue to partner and work with DOT moving forward in the future. T21, and this is from the 2014 plan, airport lighting and emergency access. So partnering with the state and aviation experts to install emergency landing lighting that enables safe operation of after dark flights, but preserves dark skies when not in use. T22, this is a new one that came about from a council member and through the work session in July, for airport water and sewer connections, partner with the state and aviation experts to install water and sewer services for fire suppression, safety, and public bathrooms. That is actually something Public Works has brought up recently in the city as well, as we're responsible for pumping those infrastructures. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but the airport and Jack Loft both have porta potties with tanks that are less than 75 gallons, which means if we're not pumping them about monthly or every other month, they fill up fast, and that's a lot of poop moving. So there was a discussion on, man, wouldn't it be nice if we had a bigger holding facility like the RV park, or, at least something that was a little bit bigger so that we weren't using those resources so often to pump. But I digress. T23, land use compatibility, work with the state of Alaska and affected landowners to maintain safety standard flight operations. This is something that's also come up recently in city council conversation, though this is a continuing goal from 2014. T24, emergency preparedness drills, can coordinate annual medevac and emergency landing exercises with air service providers to maintain readiness. And this is something that does happen, albeit though there could probably be some more routine exploration there, or regularness, to ensure that it's just happening. Some better coordination, maybe is the word I'm looking for. And then for T3, the last goal under transportation is to connect the community. So water, airport, now connecting in the overall community, looking at T31, surface transportation maintenance. This was not in the 2014 plan. So again, looking at the CIP and some of the city's goals, the council's goals moving forward for maintaining city infrastructure. So, oh, no, I'm sorry. This one was in there. It's one that's later on the down that's not. Focus on preventative maintenance of roads, bridges, sidewalks, and trails, strategic upgrades where safety or capacity issues exist. Short to long-term goal, partner DOT and KPV. And this is one that has been pretty strongly spoken about on the council realm to date, in particular about sidewalks. T32, regional collector and multi-use trail. This is the new one. Upgrade Seldovia Street, Anderson Way, Jack Loft Bay Road to safely support multiple traffic types, incorporating a separated multi-use trail for safe routes to school. And let me double check that one. Actually might have been in there, but it does partner nicely with some of the ongoing conversations that have been happening about installing more boardwalks throughout the community and making better access paths or more access paths that are off the main roadways, since our roadways are so small and congested with the multi-module traffic that we have happening. So looking at how we can increase those opportunities. T33 Safety Improvements Program in collaboration with DOT and residents identify and address safety issues such as bridge railings, blind corner mirrors, speed control measures, and lighting. I will say at that meeting in July, the public meeting about this plan, the top two items that were discussed was pedestrian safety in these safety improvements and the pool. So the pool is not in this plan, by the way, but that again is not in our purview. Safety improvements program certainly is. T34 Safe Streets Transportation Plan. This is something that is in the CIP and something we actually recently did in partnership with the Kenai Peninsula Borough. But it was too broad because it was an overall plan for the whole borough. And it's pretty hard to compete with streets in Soldotna and along the main stretch of the Sterling Highway. So having a more individualized plan, we are actually signed up to do this with AML along with 15 other communities. So hoping to start working through that process of developing a safe streets transportation plan that prioritizes pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicle safety, identifies as high-risk areas and traffic calming, a lot of things that have been talked about recently. T35 is assess demand for new routes. And again, this is a carryover from the 2014 plan, and this is where that bypass route connecting the Airport Avenue or Northern Road extension to the east end of Main Street, improving evacuation safety and reducing industrial traffic downtown comes into place. I think with a kind of a goal of having another access behind the airport into town and not relying on the bridge. T36 regional road connection feasibility, explore long, and so this is a long-term goal, explore long-term road connection possibilities to nearby communities, weighing benefits, costs, and environmental impacts. And that one should probably include Seldovia Village Tribe and SNA and some of our neighboring partners. And I know that's something that SVT is actually working on. They just had a RFP out for a planning project for the Windy River Road. So that would open up access to Windy River. And there's a road from there from Port Graham. However, I've heard that that's not necessarily something that they want to encourage over on that side. I don't know for sure. But it's in here as a plan. Huh? T37, this one's new and it kind of goes off of the other ones, but I think just calling out a little bit more pedestrian and bike network expansion. This is the one I was talking about before, and that's extending ADA accessible sidewalks and alternative pathways, linking neighborhoods with key destinations and ensuring year-round usability. And that has been a pretty big conversation on the council, city, and CIP level recently. T38, which I believe is our last one. Oh, and then there is one more goal. I apologize. T38 is seasonal traffic management plan. So in collaboration with DOT again, develop strategies for managing congestion during peak tourism, including directional signage, temporary parking solutions, and coordinated event scheduling. This is another carryover, and maybe it could be included in the safety improvements program, but maybe it has value being called out on its own as well. So would love feedback on that. And then the last goal for transportation, T4, integrate regional trail systems, T41. And again, these are both carryovers from 2014. Trailhead and wayfinding improvements, add signage, maps, and basic facilities, bike racks, benches, restrooms at key trailheads to encourage use and reduce user conflict. So thinking like Rocky Ridge or some of the other areas in town. And T42, water trail connections, strengthen Seldovia's role in the Kachemak Bay Water Trail Network through improved kayak launch points, signage, and safety features. And that's mid to long with a partnership with volunteer organizations. Any feedback or immediate feedback on transportation? Okay, I believe we still have 3 parts to go through. Do you guys want me to keep reading them out like this, or do you guys want to be able to take them back and work on them on your own? And I'm hoping that you guys can get your comments back to us by midweek next week if you have individual comments you want to write. I know it's getting late. It's 8:30, so I would like to hear from the body if you guys want to keep going through the next 3 sections or if you want to work on them individually with this in mind.
I say we go home and look at it.
And does anybody have any comments that they already wrote up on any of the remaining ones?
I don't see anything on, I guess advertising or tourism. I guess tourism is mentioned a few times.
Like marketing, are you referring to marketing?
Yeah, various forms of marketing, even low cost. I don't know.
Okay. Anybody else have anything that they had flagged for tonight? Okay, so if you have any, if you could review it any further and provide any of your comments by email to Heidi by when?
By next Wednesday, and you can even bring it in if you have a paper form, we can scan and copy. So either email or drop it by the office and we'll scan and provide that to AML. And then they'll use that feedback to finalize the plan and get it out to the public. And if there's a lot of conflicting data, then maybe we bring it back and have another work session just to work out any conflicts. But if it's okay with the body and things look relatively cohesive and consistent, we can just make those changes with AML and then provide it as a comment period to the public. I don't know. You guys give me feedback on that, how you want to do that.
There's gonna be another public forum coming up, so
Yeah, I'm just thinking if your comments are all coming in and then they're changing the plan and informing the plan. And I guess as long as it's cohesive and it makes sense and we move forward and it just goes out to the public and we have the public comment period. But if it's not, then perhaps we need to bring it back and have further discussion about any of those comments that aren't cohesive. Does that sound like a good goal?
That's a good goal.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then I also said I would circle back to the conversation on the school, the career pathways, and so I'm just thinking in terms of going along with the responsibility and partnership and I guess council member Hope. So that's on what page is that on?
So on page 42, if you want to look at the condensed version, going back to that conversation, and maybe this helps that conversation, is the Career Pathways Partnerships, E23. It is a mid-range goal, and it does include under those external partners, AbTech, Kasitina Bay, KPBSD, KPC, KPHI, SBE, and CIRSA. So it does already call out those partners. I guess if you guys want to change that or remove it or
The language that exists is, I think, more than adequate. Adding any extra, I think the city should pursue any sort of support that we can outside of putting it inside of this document. anytime these conversations come up, yes, of course, we're all in favor of supporting any opportunity like this. And the language that you have in existence here is great,
Okay,
in
so
my opinion.
I agree.
okay,
I agree.
okay, so I just
think
wanted
it's
to circle back and make sure that we were all,
I think the wording
everybody
is-
was good. Okay. All right, thank you for your patience and your feedback, and any other comment? Adjourning would be good. Is that, okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.